before we get into it, I think it would be great because many of us would know you, but I think there'd be a lot of people who will be a part of this call who really won't know much about you at all. And we'd love to hear just briefly about you and your role and responsibilities in the leadership space that you have, even outside of the church leadership, because I know you also lead outside of that space as well. And maybe a little bit about how you ended up doing what you're doing. And also, we'd love to hear a little bit about your family.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, my name is Mark Zschech. I'm married to Darlene, who's maybe or maybe not right, famously known as a worship leader all around the world, and that brings its own challenges and difficulties and opportunities. So that's one thing. But Darlene and I, we've been co-leading our church, Hope Unlimited Church, or as we call it, Hope You See. We're in our 12th year. This December we'll complete 12 years.
Wow, well done.
And that's a miracle that we're leading that church, because at that time of transition, which was probably 13, 14 years ago, when we were leaving Hillsong Church, we were there for 27 years, really right from the very formative days. We knew that we needed to move on, and we wanted to move on, but we just didn't know what we were going to do. And we didn't actually seriously consider leading a church. We thought that we would be part of a team in some other system. And so whether that be in America or India or Asia or UK or even somewhere in Australia. So strangely enough, when we took on the church at Charm Haven, I didn't even know where Charm Haven was. We went to speak for them on a leaders Saturday morning, and it just became very clear to both of us that this was a place that we wanted to invest ourselves, really, in our minds. Back then it was for the next 27 years, whatever that may be, and so far it's been 12. That doesn't mean anything, by the way. We're very, very happy there and pretty dialed into what God's doing in our church. But parallel to all of that, I suppose what most people find unique is that I am a businessman at the same time. So we do own several other endeavors. Primarily the one that probably grabs most people's attention is we have a media company which we've been running for nearly 17 years. We have 25 full-time staff there, and particularly involved in Christian media, but not exclusively. Probably about 70% of our time revenue is with Christian clients. Probably about 30% is typically with government departments or private enterprises. And as part of that is buying and selling television airtime. That's part of it, but not the majority. So business, I run as for fun. We have a small hobby farm. I've got a coffee business in Africa and some other venture capital type IP products as well. So that's the compressed version.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. And I think that one of the things that I've really admired about what you've been able to do, you and Darlene, is that you've been able to continue to keep all of those things relatively healthy, despite the growth of church life and the complexity of church life, and that whole bivocational ministry thing. I'm not sure that everybody's necessarily wired for it, but I do know it's something that you kind of really espouse. And I maybe before I just invite you just to share maybe what's on your heart. Do you see any what would you say that are the big benefits for churches that can adopt a bivocational leadership model? And also, do you see any challenges for churches that want to run their leaders or their pastors in that way?
Yeah, look, it's a brilliant question, and I try not to talk about it too much, to be honest, because it's a confusing area for a lot of people. And of course, you make a statement and everyone goes, well, that's the way they do it. That's the way we've got to do it. I feel particularly called to it, but I have to tell you, this was a 30-year wrestle inside of it, because up until I felt a release about it to be bivocational, we were always in a culture, in a greater church culture, that was, you're either one or the other. You're either lots of teaching around that was either, well, you're either a priest, you're in ministry, or you're a king, you're in the marketplace. So I suppose there was a moment where I had done both backwards and forwards, by the way. I had worked at church, quit, gone back to the marketplace, felt frustrated there again, went back to church, effectively quit again.
Yeah.
This isn't for me. I've got to go back to the marketplace. So I really have TikToked in this space. So it's been a personal journey for me. Now, I don't believe everyone's called to be bivocational, number one. And look, the majority of our staff at Hope You See aren't bivocational. There's some that are, and we celebrate that and try to help them and release them. But I always say, to be honest, as a pastor, when I'm preaching, because again, typically those of us that are in ministry, I call myself full-time minister, because these days I don't spend much of my time on our businesses. Like, we've been running those for a long time, and we've now got professional management teams and reporting, and it takes me a couple of hours a week, in all honesty. But there's some relationships that I really invest myself into with our clients that I love, and I won't let that go, that's for sure. But the idea that everyone should do something, I don't subscribe to that.
Okay.
But I love it. It helps me, my gift set, my calling. I would say that if I was all, and I've done this flip-flop journey, so if I was all pastor, I end up becoming a frustrated pastor, because I always see, economic opportunities or businesses that should start. And then on the other side, if I'm always just 100% business guy, I always go, look, people should be helping, doing this, and the church should be doing these things. So it's an energy inside of me. And I've just felt like God's now helped me to understand I can do both. But look, dominantly, the way I always phrase it, which helps people in their mind, is when I hop out of bed in the morning, put my feet on the ground, the first thing I think about is our church. Every day of the week. So that's my MO. And our businesses help release me to do more ministry.
Of course.
And again, that's a very important distinction, because again, if your motivation is, I want to make a lot of money and I want to help the kingdom, well, then I would say the opposite. When your feet land on the ground, predominantly, you should be thinking about business and how you can release ministry. But see, for me, it's not like that. But our businesses help Darlene and I do ministry.
Yeah, great thought. Yeah, so you are leading across multiple locations, and you've got some great leaders in your world. So I thought it'd be great if you could bring to us maybe what's on your heart at the moment in terms of how you are, or how you see the leadership space at the moment. What's something that you would say is probably one of the most important things that we should be thinking about, working on as leaders in this current climate?
Yeah, look, every time there's disruption, and you'd have to agree, simply, last 2 years have been a whole lot of disruption. Inside that, every single time, whether that's economically, socially, politically, is always opportunities. And some of the most interesting businesses, ideas see the light of day that come from disruption. And so I would say, as a church, as people who are, committed to do ministry, we could look at the climate and go, well, how do we dig ourselves out of this hole? But I think that's a minimist sort of thinking pattern. And I would suggest to you that there's a lot more opportunity than negativity. And now you might be going, he's crazy, doesn't he read the newspapers? Well, look, the one thing, being my age now, in my later 50s, and going through many cycles and ups and downs, is that I can say to you that this is a season of opportunity. If you want to look with the right glasses, I preached on the weekend. I haven't gotten to my points yet, by the way, but I preached on the weekend that, about Moses, being cornered at the Red Sea, is that clearly the people of Israel were complaining. They pumped him with like about 6 different questions. Why shouldn't we go back? Why did you bring us out here? We're going to die out here. The king's coming down. He's going to slaughter them all. That's his intent. And the Bible clearly says that the people were complaining. And God heard their complaints as well, and he gives Moses instructions to say, well, just get moving. That's the answer. So this is the antidote to movement, is the antidote to the pressure. But interestingly, when you do a word study on the word complain, this will save you thousands of dollars, whoever's listening to this, on counseling and over your lifetime. Complaining, break it down to 2 parts. The prefix, just means together, forcefully, a group of people together. There's this that idea. But plain, if you really dig down to that and go into the Latin and all those sorts of things, it just means uninteresting, effectively boring. There's nothing special. And so when you put that together, what the word really complaining means is a group of people forcefully talking about a boring thing. And so I try to insert into our congregation on Sunday to say, if you're complaining, you're boring. If you're complaining, you're boring. If you're complaining, you're boring. And so the antidote to complaining is actually, according to the Bible, that God gave Moses instructions to get the people moving. And so again, this negativity that we're feeling and reading, interest rates, the cost of living, electricity, blah, 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 blah. That messaging, what it does to the human soul is it just typically paralyzes it, because fear rises up inside of you. And I think as ministers, our job is to be counterculture. So every opportunity I get, I want to speak hope. I want to speak movement. I want to speak, and this isn't just some sort of philosophical mantra. I've lived it. I believed it. There's been many times we've been wedged and thinking, how do we ever get out of here? And look, we made a dumb mistake. God, if you don't do something, you're going to be seriously embarrassed. And he comes through every single time. I just want to, number one, encourage you about, really, I suppose, taking steps forward. But don't, every time you feel yourself, and you can feel it, you start to feel the fear rise, the problems, the pressures, the shoulders start to sink in a sense. And you go, oh God, what, I'm gonna manage my way through this. That's not the way we should be living as Christians, as leaders. I think we should be living with faith. We should be living with a movement forward. We're going to take that mountain. We're going to climb that hill. God, I don't know how you're going to do it, because today in the natural, it looks like we're wedged. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't speak hope. And see, some people might say, well, you're putting people in an awkward position. You're speaking hope, but really, they're riddled with cancer. How can you pray hope over them when the prognosis is? Well, I said, look, again, we've got to be people of faith. Our faith journey is actually about taking faith steps. Otherwise, we're just spiritual managers. I'm just not happy with that. I don't want to live my life or leave a legacy for my children or my grandchildren or the people in our communities and say, oh, he was a good spiritual manager. I want our testimonies personally, in our businesses, in our congregations, to be riddled with miracle stories, where, whatever those would be. And then corporately for us as a church, that again, the people can actually, hang their hat and go, remember that story back in 2020, and again, there's lots of stories, and you've heard me talk about them, Luke, for our church, where you just go, that is miraculous.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. Yeah. Well, you said before you have, for our team, just prepared a few thoughts, and
yes,
tell you what, we would love to hear some of that. Sure. And if we get time later, we might touch on a few other things, but if not, that's also fine. And we'd love to hear some of your thoughts.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for this opportunity to speak. I really treat it as a privilege and an honor. As you probably hinted, this isn't what I imagined my life to be like. Being Darlene's husband, which is now my first name. Most people call me that by around the world, which I'm quite comfortable with, by the way. But that'll test your own character when you see other people rise up around you, and you've still got to stay on track and true. So that's why I think, thank you again, Luke, for allowing me to be here. Is what I spoke to actually our church staff. We had a staff retreat a couple of weeks ago, and it really was a message that was rattling around in me. And I thought, if I can, as best I can, shorten it down a bit, but to bring it to you guys.
Yeah, great.
Is, I just want to start this process by saying I really felt like the Holy Spirit was saying to me, reflecting on what's my greatest leadership lessons that I've learnt myself personally, that I could share and transmit, and how what would that be? And of course, you have all these different stories you could tell, or in some cases, you've got all these scars where you've been hurt or bruises, and you go, well, share that bruise. Hopefully that helps someone. But I wanted to take a slightly different track and just to sort of think about what's the thing that I've learnt and struggled with and practice. And I think it's brought blessing and promise and provision in my own personal life. And so I did write these few points about that. And again, it's a parallel teaching that reflects also in Moses' early life. Before Moses really understood who Moses was, it's actually much more about his mother than himself.
Right.
And one of the leadership lesson is to think through personally, is when you've got a dream, or you've got ideas, or you've got, let's call it aspirations, or maybe some people aren't comfortable with those sorts of terms because of the type of person that they are. They go, oh, well, that's not me. Well, then let me phrase it a different way. You've probably got passions. There's a guy in our staff who loves Liverpool Football Club. If I talk to him about Liverpool, he can tell me every player's name, every trade of player that they bought and sold, every game, where they've won and lost the game, all of it. He's passionate about the Liverpool football. He'll get up at 4:00 in the morning. I don't know, maybe some of you watched the Socceroos this morning. He'll do that every week to watch the Liverpool game. And so you might excuse yourself and say, oh, well, I'm not that type of person. I don't have big dreams. I don't have aspirations. God doesn't give me ideas. Well, you've definitely got passions. And I would say in some ways that God's given you those passions, and that's a gift in your life, and how you utilize them for the kingdom's sake will be a very important question. But it's also a responsibility for you to bring them forth. I think one of the most disappointing things, I won't speak for every pastor in the room, but one of the most difficult things as a pastor that I think is to see people with potential and never reach it.
Yeah.
Look, people make mistakes. We get all sad and brokenhearted about that. But hopefully they repair themselves, they write the situations, and they move forward. Well, again, I go, whoa, that's awesome. But someone who you go, they've got so much potential, but they won't let that potential come out of them. That's heartbreaking. And I can't do anything about it other than, helpfully encourage them, maybe nudge them, push them, provoke them, poke them, whatever I'm trying to do to get that past that potential. And see, when everyone's got potential, but when you're speaking to a 5-year-old at the soccer pitch, or a 10-year-old or a 14-year-old, and you go, mate, you've got so much potential as a sports person. That's obviously I love my football. That's fantastic. But when you have that conversation with a 20-year-old, you go, mate, come on, you've got potential. Well, then there becomes a bit of an urgency. You better do something with that potential. But what happens if you're having that conversation with someone who's 40, 50, 60, 70? That's heartbreaking. They've missed significant opportunities and experiences in their life. So my question then, let's go back to the start, is your dreams, your aspirations, your ideas, your passions. What are you going to do to actually bring them to the front? So, and of course, most of us, one way or another, we dare not dream too big. Because we don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to put ourselves out there. We don't the risk of going forward. So a lot of people might go deep down, they've got a dream that numerically you might say that's a 10, you know, but they're only ever talking about a 6. Now, there's good reasons not to tell everyone about your 10, and Joseph is a fantastic example. Don't go telling people your 10s, because that's going to be very uncomfortable for all of us. You know, but again, having maturity to figure out where and when. But again, let's just say you do have this dream or this aspiration for a 10. Again, don't kill it. That's the one thing. You know, keep it alive, because you know most of us believe that those dreams are God-given, and rightly so, they are. But how do you get your dream though from promise, which is what we've been talking about? How do you get your dream from promise to reality? And I just think that's a really, really important question in life and leaders and for people in ministry. Because again, we've all got these busy sort of mechanisms. We're all trying to do things, help people, serve people. But in the midst of that, we've got to figure out, how do I leave my mark on planet Earth? With the things that God's embedded in me, which is unique to me. I'm not like everybody else, as you've already heard. And you are exactly the same. There's things that are so unique about you that only you can bring that color and that sort of definition to who we are globally as a church. And so while you are holding that back or burying that in, you, in some ways, I'll say it bluntly, you're robbing all of us of that color, and that diversity and those things. So I just think it's behoven to all of us to nudge every one of us, because there's something that Luke, that you do, there's something that I bring, there's something that your leaders bring that no one else can do. And so again, it's an important question then to keep answering. The latent potential that God's put in me, am I doing everything I can to bring that to reality?
Yeah, very good.
So how do we do that? That's the test, that's the question. And I think Moses' mum, you know, is a really interesting story, because she had a dream. She had aspirations for that son. She had everything that she could have dreamed for, as we all know. Let's call it our dreams. Sometimes we call them our babies. And she had to give her baby away. And to answer the original question is, what's a leadership lesson that I've had to learn in my life, apply in my life, benefit from my life, is learning how to give things away.
Yeah, wow.
And it's been a really powerful tool, to be honest. And there was a moment for me where, you know, because I feel like I'm, you know, to some degree, a bit of an entrepreneur, and I'd have ideas and, that we could, you know, have an impact in that area. We could make some resource finances in that area, do all these things. And then I got to a certain point in my life where I figured out that I don't have the time or energy to execute on some of those ideas. And so I started to sit on those ideas, be them ministry ideas as well, by the way. And I really felt like the Holy Spirit challenged me to say, you can't deliver on that, but that person down the road can. And so why don't you give them that idea? And I was like, oh man, if I give them that idea, I'll miss my opportunity. I'll miss my the moment, or this could be the big breakthrough that I've been believing God for. This is the baby that I'm holding. And then the challenge was, well, if I've given you one idea, do you think I can give you another one? And yet sometimes we hold on to some of these things. We go, this is my thing, my ministry, my calling. These are my people, my life group, my department, my church, whatever it is. And actually, it's not yours. You are just a steward of the opportunities that God's given you. And if he's given you one, he can give you two, and he can give you 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. But you've got to learn how to let them go. And this is the lesson that I want to talk about. Is a thing that I believe that Moses' mum did. If you read the scriptures, I won't go there. Exodus chapter 2, just thinking about time here. First few verses, interestingly, it says there that Moses was a special baby. So again, we've all got these things, these little projects, these ideas, these dreams, aspirations, passions that are special to us. But again, the thing that she did was, think about this, is that she put her 3-month-old child, the thing that was special to her, and she put that baby in a basket and trusted the God of the universe to somehow turn that moment into miraculous. She didn't know, or maybe she did know, we'll get to ask her one day, is Pharaoh's daughter was coming down the river. She had another daughter there watching the basket to see what might happen to it. But she genuinely trusted, the way I describe it is she trusted a cosmic God. She put that baby and sent it into the river of fate. What might happen next. And again, I just think with some of the things that you might be holding on to, and I encourage you, the best thing that you could ever do is trust them to God, and give them away. Let them see a bigger space. Let them actually share that with other people, because again, that might actually help mature or develop or strengthen those ideas, or someone else might pick it up and run with it. And that would be just as amazing, by the way. And so Moses' mum learnt how to give away her baby. And I just think it's a lesson for all of us in life generally. And it makes you a big person on the inside then. Whereas if all you're trying to do is spend all your time protect your ideas, or all you do, then you're only dripping feed the conversations or the information, and you're trying to, it's like you've signed your own personal NDA. I'm not going to let anyone else know what God's spoken to me about. Well, I just go, I just want to be an open book. I trust him more than I trust myself. And see, that's an interesting principle right there. If you're willing to actually give those ideas away, those passions, those dreams, whatever they are, what you're saying to our Father in heaven is, I trust you more than I trust what I can do. And that's the one thing I love. I love going, God, I don't see a way through here. I don't understand all the mechanisms. I can't manufacture some of these things. I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to give it to you. Whatever you want to do through me, I'm up for that. But see, to do that, then you've got to open the gate, and you've got to let those other ideas go.
That's so good.
Moses' mum also surrendered to God's processes. This was the system that she was living in. This is the rules that the government had set and said, all babies 3 months and older have to die, genocide. And yet, so what she did is she put that child in the basket and put it down the river. But the one thing that she did do, is she built the best basket anyone could do with the resources that were in her hand. So do you think that was more waterproof than her regular baskets? Absolutely. Do you think that had more space than her regular baskets? Absolutely. Do you think that was more secure than her regular baskets? Absolutely. She put her best efforts into that basket to protect that baby, but then sent the baby down the river. If it's God's dream for you to have some things that you've got, and I don't want to even describe what those might be, because everyone's so different. Do you think by giving it away, that'll be less chance of it actually happening? Because what you're actually saying then is that that your trust with the Lord, your faith in this faith journey has got limitations. And sure, we've all got limitations, but I just want to encourage you today, God's big. He's massive.
That's great.
He's huge. He's got all things going on. As I said, I preached on Sunday. I just felt about this particular message I preached it. I felt like there was an aspect of it that was prophetic as I was speaking it on Sunday. And I said that to the congregation. And afterwards, I got all of these text messages from different ones and people coming up to me after. So you spoke directly into my life. I did not know any of those stories. I didn't know any of the dramas that people were facing. And again, that's where I say, I'm trusting a big God. I go, all I got to do is manage what he gives me. Again, I want to turn my potential into actual reality. So God, speak to me. I'm willing to give things away. I'm willing to just pass those ideas through. I'm not trying to own anything. And again, off the back of that, I go, we'll see miracles. And I personally experienced that many, many times. The other thing that when you think about how Moses' mum put the basket down, Pharaoh's daughter came, picks up the baby, says, look, I need someone to nurse this child. And then Moses' mum gets nominated by the daughter and says, oh, look, I found someone that could nurse the child. So it's funny how if you're willing to give the baby away, if you're willing to give that thing away, whatever it is, genuinely surrender, sacrifice it away, God immediately brought that thing back into her life. Not only that, the Bible says that then Pharaoh's daughter paid her to nurse the child. So he brought the resources and the finance then to actually see that child. So all of her dreams not only were met, but exceeded. So fancy then as a mum, all your mums out there, getting paid to mother your children from the world system. But to do that, you had to give that child up to the Lord, see? And then she got the chance to raise the child, bring the child. But then this is an interesting thought, is then that Moses' mum had to give Moses away for a second time. She had to give Moses up to Pharaoh. So she's given Moses away twice now. But now she gives Moses up to a system and a place that can offer more to Moses than what she can. Again, you can understand why then, Miriam and Aaron is part of her legacy in that sense, is that she knew how to give things away. And so then, because she could never offer Moses what the Pharaoh's system could offer. And again, because of that, he was then able to actually rescue a nation, and we all know the story. Giving your dream away a second time is what a great, you can crow about the miracle. You can say, yes, I gave it away. God brought it back to me. He brought the resources back to help me. But what happens then if God challenges you then a second time and says, can you now give the dream away again, now that I've rescued you, now that you've seen what I can do for you? And then think about this. She gave that child away to a place, a system that could do better. So again, in your department, in your group, and your leadership ability, could you invest yourself into a leader, help them become better than you?
That's a great thought.
I just think she was a remarkable woman. We don't own people as pastors. We don't own ideas. We don't own dreams. As I said earlier, God simply is asking us to steward them. for a time and a season that we have. I mean, one of our personal darlings of my mandate is, it's not a church mandate, but we just say build them and release them. We're talking about people, by the way. Build them and release them. Build them and release them. And again, this leadership theme for us it's been miraculous, and it's just so paid so many dividends in our lives that I can't describe to you the thousands of testimonies about that, literally thousands of that type of practice. And I can hear people in their heads going, well, it's all right for you. You've had all these lucky breaks. God's just sort of seemed to, make your life go easy for you. Well, I can tell you, it doesn't feel easy. We've had our significant challenges, personally, in our family, financially. I'm not here to brag about how big my challenges have been compared to yours, but I'm just telling you that is not the case. I heard one of my all-time favorite preachers, who's a mentor of mine, is Pastor Rick Godwin. Some of you may know of him. He's a Texan preacher, and you can go to his podcast. His church is called Summit Church in San Antonio, Texas. He's as blunt as they can get, but he preached a message. Literally, I listened to it driving to church on Sunday. If you've got $1 million promise, you're not going to have a $50 problem. He says, if you're going to have $1 million promise, you're going to have a significant promise. But if you can get if you can get through the problem, though, God will provide provision on the other side. And I think that's the lesson that we've learned, is to go, problems aren't problems. They're actually opportunities. They come dressed up as problems. But again, I just believe that God somehow put something inside of me, inside of you, to actually figure out a way through the problem. And some of that might be, I give up. That doesn't mean you sit down and give up, but it means that you go, I've given up all of my own emotional, mental strength to solve a problem, and I'm going to hand the problem, the baby, over to God. I'm going to do the best that I can with it. I'm going to build the best basket I can. And I'm just going to say, God, you've got to solve this. I can't solve it. All I'm going to do is be the honorable, integrous leader that I can be, call things out that I see aren't right, and do the best that I can. Up to that, we need miracles. And I just think that's a great way to live. Because again, I think sometimes pastors carry too much. Or leaders carry too much. They carry all the burdens and all the things, and yet you can't solve them. Some of those problems that you're trying to help, people have spent 20 years getting themselves into those problems, and and you're trying to rescue them. You can't rescue that. All you can do is point them, coach them, give them tools, principles, challenge. Again, most people think pastoring is all about cups of tea and patting people on the back, but I would say good pastors know how to confront in love and actually call things out. So again, I encourage you in that space. When you hold ideas, what ends up happening is you will hold people. These are my people. You become more committed to what I call boundary maintenance than actually releasing them and building the best people you can. And I just think, again, it's a good challenge for all of us to really think about how to surrender, let go, and lift other people up. As I said, then I believe it's one of the most freeing ways to live. It reduces I'm saying all anxiety, because I do worry about things. But in terms of our church, I go, God, this is your church. I don't have to, I say three things to young pastors. I can't make people walk in the front door. I can't make them put their hand up at the altar call. And I can't make them put their hand in the pocket when it comes to offering times. I can just do my best. My best preach, my best altar call, and my best presentation about why giving to the kingdom is a good thing. After that, it's all in God's hands.
Mm.
And I'm really happy about that. That frees me. I drive home then on a Sunday night and go, I did my best. And that's my question when our leaders go, well, what did you think? How did it go? What was my preach like? What was the service like? What was the offering? You know, blah, 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 blah. And I go, well, simply, my simple question is, did you give it your best? And they go, oh, well, I probably could have done better. Or I could do it. Okay, well, then that's what we need to talk about. You know, study more, get more feedback. Yeah, well, then let's do all of those things. But in the day and the time, and against how I measure my own self on a Sunday, did I give this Sunday my best? Yes. Okay, mate, I'm going to have a happy Monday. But, everyone knows when you didn't give it your best.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, that's the measure, not the results, Really important not to think about the results, but did I give my best?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather fall into the hands of the one who holds all things together than fall into my own hands. And again, it sounds, it's confronting to think that through. Am I trying to do the ministry, or am I just being a good steward on behalf of God? Again, sometimes we own too much, and all he's asking us to do is to be a vehicle and to be his spokesman in the time. Moses, by the way, was a reluctant leader.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. God had to drag him into the role that he saw himself. So again, just be comfortable letting things go. I mean, the way I'm about to close, sorry, Luke, I don't know whether I'm
No, that's great.
too long
that's
or too
fine.
short.
No, we've got time.
Good. Jesus is not a concept that we're trying to explain to a secular society or even defend. I mean, Jesus is a person. He's a living being, and all we're trying to do is actually introduce people to him.
Yeah, great.
Church is not a system. It's actually a place to encounter Jesus.
Mm-hmm. It's very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good. And I totally feel as though that is I know it's a timely thought. And I know I would have encouraged a team, but I know it's going to encourage our team and encourage me, Mark, honestly, just around that whole idea of what we own, what we're responsible for, what we need to carry, and how pastors often, take ownership of things that aren't theirs to take hold of. They carry things that aren't theirs to carry. And it's not like we don't do the work and we don't have responsibility, but often it's carrying much more than we've ever been intended to carry. So that's really helpful for us at the moment as a church. I think many churches, as well, as you spoke initially about changing sands and the shifting times and how things might look and feel a little different than they did in the past. That doesn't mean there's not opportunity, but some of that timeless stuff there about, okay, well, yeah, there's opportunity, there's still dreams, there's still things that we can do, but maybe there's some things that we do have to let go of that were never ours to hold on to in the first place. I love that. I think that gives us some freedom to continue to dream big dreams. This one thing I've noticed and felt in this last season is just the weight of what we are carrying tends to squash the creativity and the entrepreneurialism out of our leadership. And so because we think, well, how can I birth any of this? How can I release any of this when there's just so much other things I need to manage? But, maybe if we get that idea, like you've just shared, that, let's continue to have those dreams, see those passions as God's gift. And yeah, maybe if you don't have the capacity to release it, it doesn't mean it's still not from God. Doesn't mean it's still not going to be birthed somewhere with someone.
Absolutely.
So I think it gives
I love that thought.
Yeah.
I've still got dreams for our church. I feel like God gave me pictures for Hope You See, where they haven't come to fruition, and that doesn't even look like they're going to come to fruition.
Yeah.
But I just go, God, somehow I give it to you. You're going to have to figure this out.
Yeah.
And I keep looking. I keep going, I wonder if they're going to be the person that actually brings this dream to fruition. And they're not, they're not big things. They're just sort of little, they're not little, but they're sort of programmatic things that I go, this is what I believe our church should be known for in our community. And I'm always on the hunt. I go, and people don't even know. I go, but my ears are open. I go, is this where I should give the dream away?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
this the person that should carry the string?
Yeah. Great. Well, I've got a whole pocket full of dreams here. I might just hand over to you, mate, if you don't mind. Well, a lot of things I'd like to see come to fruition. So
Yeah,
you
I
seem
know.
like the kind of guy that could take these to the next level.
Amen. Amen. Well,
uh,
again, I always say, the title, if you want to wear the badge pastor, the acronym for that is PS, which fundamentally for me always says problem solver. And so if you want to be a pastor, if you want to be someone in ministry, you will spend your life solving problems, one way or another. People, I still get amused, and I'm sure even for you, Luke, people think, oh, it'd be so great just to spend 40 hours a week in the word and studying, getting ready to preach. I wish too. That would be my dream. Unfortunately, I've got to, talk to real estate agents, and I've got to try to buy buildings. I've got to look at the cash flow. I've got to fill in the forms for the ACNC. I've got to run a board. I've got to do all these other things as well. And hire and firing people. And, oh, geez, it's just, it sort of goes on and go, God, please give me 40 hours a week so I could study the word.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be amazing. So, yeah, being a leader, having aspirations for ministry means you better be comfortable solving problems.
Yeah, it's great. Very good. I loved how you said there too, when you're talking about releasing things and listening, you're listening for and looking for the who, not necessarily, what, not the next kind of, next system or next program or next fad, but the who's the person that could possibly carry this. And I think that's so good.
Yeah. Is this the basket to put the baby in? Is this the one?
Yeah.
Where then I release that, because then I would release it. I mean, there's things that I go, then of course the question is this something I should instigate, or is this something that I should give away? But that's where it needs just that spiritual maturity then, or that emotional maturity to understand that. Because again, my only other sort of caveat to all of this is, because basically I'm trying to detangle your identity in what you do. And so trying to pull those things apart. See, and maybe this has been my life lesson, is being called all around the world for the last 40 years, Darlene's husband. I'm trying to detangle my own identity from Darlene's identity. Now I'm very comfortable in my own skin. That's the way God's wired me. I've always been like that. I don't feel worried about those things. I don't, if you did the Strength Finders Gallup test, competition for me is like number 32. I've got low competition. So in that sense, my ego, I'm not trying to prove something to anybody or beat someone or compete with somebody. And in some ways, that's also my weakness, is that sort of drive. But again, in ministry, I think if you can get your identity in a healthy place where it's not getting its measure from the successes or failures of what you do, it is such an important thing. Because then I think God can really use you to do big things. Yeah. Because otherwise your emotions will be up or down based on attendance. I've taught all of our team, I say this, we don't live or die on Sunday's numbers. We won't even talk about them. Now, what we'll talk about is if there's a trend. If there's a trend up, well done. If there's a trend down, well, what do we need to do? What do then we need? We collectively own the problems. What do we need to do to fix it?
That's so good.
But again, it's not any individual's identity on how things go.
Yeah, that's releasing, very freeing. Well, as we wrap up, Pastor Mark, why don't you? I'm going to put you on the spot here, and it's okay if you don't have anything to bring here. But you said before that you listened to Pastor Rick Godwin, and I just thought, is like, maybe who do you like to read or listen to? Like, who would you encourage your leaders to be watching or following, other than Jesus, of course?
Yeah, sure.
Or just for inspiration or recreation. I mean, I know you're a reader. Anything like that. I mean, I always try and get our team to just be thinking about or intentionally approaching content, not just mindlessly consuming. You just tap on the internet. So, what could we be reading? What could we be watching, following, that sort of thing?
Look, I'll be controversial.
Great.
But I'm comfortable with that. That's what I said. My identity is not wrapped up in trying to win friends. I don't enjoy social media. Darlene and I don't have a Facebook account. I once every month, maybe every 6 weeks, I'll look at Instagram for about 45 minutes. It's a waste of time. I'm a media person. I've got a media company.
Yeah.
That's my starting point.
Right.
So my next point is, I just think people waste so much time looking for, and look, there's funny things, there's light things. If I want to have a laugh, if I'm on holidays, sure, I'll go and burn a couple of hours scrolling Instagram. But I know, so don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be some guy from a cave.
Well, you're preaching to the choir here. I mean, our team may not think this way, but I haven't been on social media since November last year.
Wow.
And I will do what you do. So I might ask Rachel to show me, what's happening on Instagram. And again, we've got to be across it for church. And I still get in there and get into the mechanics of scheduling posts for things and all that sort of stuff. But I certainly aren't. I'm certainly not on social media and haven't been for quite some time. Yeah. So you're preaching to the choir. I don't think I've missed it. And I, when I first started doing these staff calls with other pastors, one of the questions I was asking them was, what is your approach to social media? And it's a very broad and it's a very diverse approach. So some people are all in, like I'm posting every day because I feel it helps the pastorally care for people. I get into their lives and that they're all in. Others are the same as you. No, it's just not where I'm at. So I don't know. And they both, all of those leaders I've spoken to, none of them seem to be going backwards because of each approach that they've taken. So
anyway, on the other hand, Darlene loves Instagram. So I'm just into you. She's on it every day. So, but we're very two different people. I'll tell you one book I've just read recently, which I've loved. But I can't suggest to you that I chose it. It chose me, because I'm in a study program at the moment. I'm working on my Masters of Leadership.
Yep.
And I've just completed, or about to complete, this subject, New Testament foundations. And so part of it was you had to read this text. And
great.
And that is honestly amazing. So if you are only listening, it's called The New Testament in Its World. It's interestingly written by N.T. Wright and a Aussie theologian, a guy called Michael Bird. It's an introduction to the history, literature, and theology of the first Christians. You might go, "Oh, that sounds boring," but this book has been really refreshing as a theologian textbook. I'll turn it sideways just so it can also intimidate you. It's thick. It's all the chapters are very breakdown. You can read it chapter by chapter, but that's been refreshing for my soul. And then I've just started a new book which I've really loved, by another couple of theologians, called Looking at the New Testament Mysteries. How embedded in our Christian faith there's a mystery, and Paul talks about it, saying that he's now at a time that he can understand some of the mysteries. And again, I think sometimes, I always have a bit of a crack at the evangelicals to say, you can't put God in a systematic theology textbook. He's bigger than that. And again, there's mysteries that as believers that we are yet to discover, and I'm up for that. And I just go, God, I please, I want to be on that mystery journey. I don't want my story or our story or the church's story to be so sanitized or vanilla.
Yeah. What was the name of that book again?
uh,
Or the author?
Beale is one of the writers. But if you look up Mysteries of God,
Yeah,
Beale,
right.
You'll find it. I can give you the information after the call.
Yeah, and I'll look it up and put it on
Yeah.
the notes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. So good. Yeah, I love
That's
NT
been a heavier
Wright.
read, by the way, so I wouldn't highly recommend that. But that other one, the NT Wright,
Yeah,
Michael Bird, that's been refreshing.
yeah. So
Refreshing.
good. So good. Well, thanks so much, Pastor Mark. I've really appreciated your generosity, giving us so much of your time and your insight. And some of that stuff has just been super encouraging personally for me, and I know it will be for our team.
Yeah,
And then just some of those other thoughts have just been really, really helpful. So yeah, really appreciate it.
God bless you, mate. Well done to Beyond Church.
Thank
We
you.
love you guys, and Luke, you're on your wife's leadership of the region. You're doing an incredible job, mate. And I'm not, I just don't want to give you platitudes in that sense. I genuinely say I think you guys are leading the region in a really, really healthy way. I love it, and I love our team being engaged under your leadership. So again, thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, thank you. No, we love it, and we do love the support of HPC, and you're a strong representation in our region, and we are thankful for that. We really are. Really appreciate your heart and what you bring to the church landscape. It's awesome.